Hi everybody, welcome to the Morgantown Multimedia User Group, the October edition, I guess you'd say. And today we're talking about smart objects in Photoshop and how they can save you time and how cool they are, and actually smart objects and smart filters. So myself and Mr. Bobby Snelson will be showing off some cool stuff. So let's get right into it. Let's show some smart filters in Photoshop. Let me share. Okay, so we're going to show smart filters and smart objects in Photoshop. So let's pick a credit to work with. Try this one. All right, let's try layers. Okay, there we go. So let's take this image for example, and let's say you wanted to work with this and using smart filters. Smart filters are actually pretty cool. They're a way to apply filters to an image, but the cool thing is that you can go back and re-edit the filter after you're done. And ordinarily, when you add a filter to an image in Photoshop, the filter's kind of done. You add like a blur effect or something like that, that's it. You're done. You can't go back and change it. You can't go back and re-edit it. But when there's smart filters, you can. So let's go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. What's going to happen here is it's actually going to convert this to a smart object, which Bobby's going to talk about in a little bit. But it says to enable re-editable smart filters, that selected layer will be converted into a smart object. So we'll say OK. And pow, now it's a smart object. And the really cool thing now is that if we add any of these, your standard, effects, do a crazy twirl thing. Alright, check this out right here. Now, ordinarily a twirl, let's do a twirl. Before I show you this, let's do a twirl to a non-smart layer, smart object. So we'll do twirl. Okay. You're done. There's no way to re-edit that. It just is what it is. You can't change it. And if I were to save this and close it, you're definitely done. I can't just do an undo. I can't do a step backwards. That's it. Now in this one, which has a smart filter, I can double-click this, and guess what? I can do whatever I want. I don't like it. Go back. Change it. And this works on all your layers. It works across the board. It's really powerful, really cool. And really, any filter you throw in, you can actually stack filters as well. So you could do, let's do a blur. All right, so now look, now you have two. Double click that. So you edit it, and you can move these around as well. You can restack them, rechange the order. So you can see the blur actually disappears, and I think also you can change the maybe not. Change the mode. But yeah. So pretty cool. Oh, the other thing about this, I think that it creates a mask on these smart filters. I think. Yeah. So it actually automatically builds a mask on these smart filters. So you could actually paint things out with a smart filter. Yeah. So you can do stuff like that, where actually the original image is still behind there. Paint the original image back in. Yeah. And you can of course convert that and paste stuff back in. Pretty cool. Smart filters. Pretty cool. So Mr. Snelson's going to show smart objects.
Okay, so what Tim showed, this kind of follows along the same lines. Basically, the whole point of this is to be able to go back at any point and make a change. So any of the changes we make, we want to try and make them as least destructive as possible. And that's kind of what my portion is going to show here. But it's also, because we're doing time savers today, it's also going to show you how you can make multiple changes, or changes to multiple items all at once, instead of going through and changing each individual item over and over and over and over again. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start out. So we'll do the same thing, convert for smart filter. So now we have a square basically that we want to work with. let's say now we want to implement this shape into a document, be it a poster or something of that nature. So we'll grab our shape. We're going to plop it into our document here. And again, you can still tell over here in the layers panel by this icon that this is now a smart object. We have our one item, and we don't like the color of it. Well, we've already made it yellow. So the only thing you could do is make it a selection, refill it, and then you end up with weird edges, or you can add a color overlay, but then you have to contend with maybe later down the road you need to change the color again, and then it gets a little messy. So what you can do in this case, if you just come over here to the icon, in the square where it actually shows a thumbnail of your smart object, and you just double click, it's going to come up and it's going to give you this warning box, and you're just going to want to select OK. And what it does, if you notice, it looks like we just made the square really big. If you notice, here's the document we're working with, but this is actually the smart object. So if I were to come in here now, for example, and let's say I wanted to make this black. Now my smart object is black. When I hit save and go back to my document, my square is now black. Now where this really comes into play as a time saver is, for example, if you make a smart object and you duplicate it, let's say you make 3 copies of that, be it there's some special bullet that you need to use, or you're just using an image multiple times in a document. So now we have our 3 squares here. If I just come back over to our smart object, and for example, let's say they tell me, now we want to change it to a red color. So I just select my red, I come back and I fill in my smart object, and I just save it. When I go back, all 3 of them have changed now. So if they're in multiple areas in the document, you don't have to hunt them out.
It's like Photoshop CS6.
Right. So exactly. So the really fun part is, so now let's say, okay, that's all good and well. But let's say I need 2 of them to be red and 1 of them needs to be blue. But you can't obviously go in and change your smart object because that changes all 3 of them, just like in CSS. So what you can do is, let's go ahead and get rid of the one on the top. Actually, we'll leave it there because it's in the place we want it. We'll just right click and we want a new smart object via copy. And what that's going to do, it's going to paste it in the exact same spot. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the one we originally had. And again, I can just come in here where that smart object via copy is now, double click. It's going to give me that same warning. I'm going to say OK. And if I come in here and I say, OK, I need to switch that, just that top one back to black, I'll switch it, save it, and then when I come back to my original document, now that one is black and the other 2 are red.
Sweet.
And it can always be changed back just as simply because when you do a copy via a smart object, it stays exactly where that smart object already is. So again, if I wanted all of them to match all the time now, I could just come back in, right click on the black layer, and say new smart object via copy. It's going to make my new smart object, and now I'm getting a little confused because I'm not very organized, but I can come back in. No, actually, you know what? That won't work. To go back. Actually, to go back, if you needed them all to be the same, you're going to have to make a duplicate again because it's actually using that smart object to duplicate. So yeah, you won't be able to go backwards. So you just have to duplicate it and replace it. And again, now if we go back to the red one and we want them all to be black, fill that one in, save it, go back to our document, and they're all back to black again.
The layers don't have to be necessarily squares or shapes. It could be
right. It could be anything. It could be an image.
Yeah.
You can, if you had an image, for example, let's say you had an image in here and it was already sized up and everything. You can actually come into your smart object and you can make a new layer, and you can put another image right on top of this one, and that way you can give the client an easy choice. So you could come in here and you could say that you want they want to see red and they want to see black. So we would save that as red, come back, print this, or save it as another name, come back in here, and then all you have to do is hide this, save it, and come back and they're all black again. And the same thing can be done with images. Same thing can be done with multiple layers inside that smart object. For example, in here, you can add multiple layers. You can add text. You can add different layers of text.
Grab one of these guys. So I took over your demo just to show. Copper. Which one? This one?
Yeah, that one's mine. And then you just save it. And when you go back, they're all the same. And this is a really nice feature for contact sheets. Let's say, for example, you've done a large photo shoot and you have contact sheets set up and you've changed one of the images. Well, instead of going in there, resizing it, throwing it in, finding it in there, you actually just go into the smart object, make your edits, save it, and then in the actual contact sheet, all the changes have been made for you, the size and so forth. And again, let me grab one of these. Let me do a new document just so I can show you this, the size changes a little bit better here. So for example, this is just a regular layer. And again, if you go small, save your change, and you come back in, you try and resize this thing. On this image, you can really tell you lose all of your quality.
Yeah,
it's completely gone. So we'll go back a couple steps here. And then again, just select or filter, convert to smart filter. And now, if we resize this down, and you can tell the difference. It puts an X on there to let you know. It does the same thing in InDesign, right, Gibble? Yeah. So now when you make it small, you say your change is fine. You select it again, and you can do it by hand, or I like to do 100% just to know I've got it right. And now you can tell the quality is all still right there in the image. It never changes it because it's not actually changing that image. It's just changing the thumbnail or placeholder that's actually in your document, never changing the real image. Yes. There you go. A couple time savers and a couple non-destructive ways to make changes to your images.
It definitely saves time because you'd be,
changes on right. Basically, a lot of times what would happen is, especially if you're doing, if you're actually building a graphic, you don't want to make any changes to that could harm it if you spent 3 or 4 days working on this graphic. So this way, you save it, you import it, or you open it, and then you just convert it to a smart object. And now you don't have to worry about ruining your original file. You can mess with the sizes, adding the filters, all of that. And if you need to change it, you just say, for example, you want to change the color scheme. You change the color scheme, hit save, and then when you go back to your poster or document or whatever it is, it's all right there.
Just all the changes have been made. Don't in the file.
Right. Well, the thing is, they're hidden in Photoshop's files. The smart objects are hidden. Yeah. So I mean, you'd really have to go digging for them to find them. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Doesn't that allow weight to the actual PSD file?
Yeah, I think it has some. Well, depending on the size.
Well, not to your actual document. It's actually less.
Yeah,
it's actually less because it works pretty much the same way InDesign does.
I think the smart
it's just
filters,
linking.
Yeah, the smart filters I think do add some weight.
Right, because they're actually in the document.
Right, yeah.
As opposed to delete one of the linked files, so you're
right, but again, they're hidden fairly well. I mean, you have to dig through a lot of Photoshop folders to get to this.
So it actually copies the file to location?
Yeah. Once you make it a smart filter, it's copied somewhere else. And if you go in there and move it, then Photoshop's going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about.